It's good. Good.
Okay. Regular meeting, Monday, July the 25th, 2016. It seems, I don't have a volume control. Back up.
Yes.
That's the budget volume control. So I practice. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Sorry, actually, just while I'm here, we'll add to item 11C the draft or the letter of support for the Legion application to New Horizons for Seniors program. So that'll be 11C under new business. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Councillor Coulson.
Thank you. I've got one I'd like to add pertaining to conflict of interest on the Nanaimo water agreements.
Okay. You want to provide any more details for new business or unfinished? Or?
At this time, I have concerns over the status of individual councillors as it pertains to potential conflicts.
Okay, I guess I'd go under 11D. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
Just adjusting it for you.
Thank you. I'll really mess with them all. Okay, hearing none, can we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Colclough, seconded by Councillor Gilsbart. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of minutes, July the 11th, 2016, regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Swain, thank you. Second by Councillor Colclough. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. July the 18th, 2016, committee of the whole meeting minutes. Councillor Swain, Councillor Haynes, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. First item with regards to the agenda is whether or not there's any public input with respect to development permit with variance number 3060-20-DP16-004, which is to accommodate a new dwelling on the property at 7144 EB Road. Is there anybody who would like to speak with regards to the development permit application with variance for 7144 EB Road? Okay, hearing none. Councillor Gilsbart.
I make the motion that's set out in the agenda under item 5A.
Okay, do a second. Second by Councillor Colclough. Discussion. Councillor Haynes.
I got to think twice now. Just a question through the staff. Height variances and setback variances are significant issues in the community. And in the past, when these have come before council, because of the lot size, we've always increased the notification size, the area. Did we just keep it to the 60 meters? We tend to make it double or 3 times that size.
Your Worship, for the council, that's correct. We kept it to the 60-meter notification radius. At this point, I was not aware that there was a policy.
I don't believe it's a written policy in any way, shape, or form. It's just in certain circumstances, the notification area has been expanded, but there wasn't any specific criteria.
Just following up on that, on the last development application, development permit with variance we had on the foreshore, we had quite a few concerns brought to council about height and about just setback. I'd like to see, I don't know if there's an opportunity to increase the notification area before we approve this, or just to give the community that opportunity to just the neighbors to be aware of what's going on.
The notification was actually sent out about 2.5 to 3 weeks prior to this meeting, so there was ample time for the neighbors to comment. And in fact, in my report, I did outline the fact that we did get a comment from one of the neighbors, and they were basically concerned about the mature house on the property. Now, as indicated, the applicant, when they submitted their application, they also included an arborist report with respect to the tree requested the spur. The neighbor was concerned there was a tree for growth. But as it stands right now, there is no provincial regulation to protect perching trees, only nesting trees. And in this case, through the arborist's review, he had indicated that the trees should be removed. That was a recommendation of the consultant, given the fact that the trees are experiencing decay and stress.
Additional follow-up?
Yeah, just to follow up. So how many neighbors, which neighbors received notification? Just so I know that the neighbors have been covered.
It would have been all the neighbors, basically along that section of EV Road, including the folks that live at the farm there. That's up for sale currently.
Yeah.
And certainly all the neighbors at the end of the cul-de-sac. So they're right of the map that you're looking at, Councillor Hain.
Okay.
And then certainly the neighbors that are immediately across the road on 80, to the left of the map.
So you went up to 7844?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Coulson.
I have a question on page 12. At the bottom, under public consultation implications, it says there's zoning bylaw requirements for building height from 8 to 8.95 meters. So that, what is the 8.95 referencing? Because everywhere else it speaks to 9.8 meters.
Sorry, that's a typographical error. It should be 9. The request is to relax the height from 8 to 9.8 meters.
Sure, so 9.8 is the correct number.
9.8.
And that's the number that would have been sent out in the notification.
That's correct.
Okay. And just a general follow-up, I haven't seen too many of these height variances since my time here, but the few that I recall that are on the ocean there, it seems that they all come for a variance and go up to almost the maximum 8 meters and then ask for the amount of the watercourse, height required. Going back over the years, one of my understandings of the height number was that so that we don't get too big of buildings right up at the waterfront there. So if we're going to be continually relaxing these requirements, why don't we just make a policy rather than always reviewing them?
One thing to remember is that the ones on the foreshore, because of the floodplain,
Yeah.
they have to go above and beyond to get effectively what other areas you can.
Yes. But we had one down here on Dickinson, and then there was another one, I think, down on Maxwell Road that we looked at, all kind of asking for an increase that took almost an 8-meter house plus whatever offset they needed for the floodplain amount.
Yeah.
So effectively, we haven't protected anyone from an overheight building, perhaps.
No, on the one on Dickinson, if we're referring to the same one, there was actually 2 structures, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
And we did limit them on the accessory building.
Yeah.
Whereas the house, we went the full thing. Councillor Swain?
Through the chair of staff, just a question regarding the height variance. Do we have any historical data on the variances that we're allowing on the waterfront? Because this one is asking for 6 feet, not really a big deal, but in the context of what we're allowing for other folks, how does that compare?
Mayor to council, I've not done an analysis on the historical variances along the waterfront. I think the whole point of looking at these variances when you move before council is to evaluate each case on its own merits. And there might be a situation, one instance where the variance will impact the views of a number of existing property owners, and other instances where the variance has no impact whatsoever on the views of the neighbors. And that's the case in the district, for instance, where given the surrounding mature vegetation, the height of the surrounding homes, this particular variance is attached with the reason.
And on a similar note, I guess through the chair to staff again, just on a similar note, with the setback again, what's the historical data in terms of what other people are actually, in, I guess, previous years have been allowed to have as a variance?
With respect to the setback on the water courses, it's very common for relaxation to go down to 10 meters. And now this is not based on specific analysis on what's occurred in Nashville. I'm just basing this on my past experience in other communities. But it's all predicated on the report that the professional environmental consultant provides. And that's the whole point of going through that exercise, is to see what an appropriate setback should be. And in this case, the site's already been impacted because there's an existing structure on the site. If we were talking about a pristine area, that setback may be wider. I think the other thing to add is that the recommendation from the consultant as well is to replant in that setback area. So the amount of vegetation that's going to be within that 10-meter area is going to be twice as much as what we see today on the property.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, with regards to the presentations, delegations, and petitions. David Reed, Lanark. Hello, sir.
Hello, Mayor Hain and Council. Great pleasure to be here. Now, I'm going to deal with technology. How's that? Do you want to run this slide? Okay.
The mouse down.
Great. Thank you. My name's David Reed. Great. Awesome. My name's David Reed. I know some of you in the room and many I don't. I am a resident of Lansville, but I'm also principal of Lanark Consultant. And we're extremely pleased to be representing a team of Lanark, Coors, and Econics to take on both your official community plan and your water master plan over the next months, approximately a year. I'm here tonight. We're just beginning, absolutely just beginning, but we'd like to launch both events on Minetown Days. Being a Lansvillian, I'm well aware of Minetown Days, or at least launch the public process. We'll be working on them in August and September, but Minetown Days is September 10th, which is before the next council meeting. So we're here to make sure the council's aware that we'll be having a tent at Minetown Days, and at that point laying out opportunity for the public to be involved more throughout the weeks ahead. Our first major event with the public is likely to be in mid-October, mid to late October, and that will likely be at Costin Hall and will be substantive. But to get people aware of the process and to get them out, we need to beat the drum a little bit and start with publicity, and so Minetown Days is a great opportunity to do that in a way that's fun. The reason I'm telling you that is because you as council will start to see some advertisements of us being at Minetown Days in mid-August, because we'd like to be out there about 3 weeks in advance, and so we didn't want to catch you by surprise. So expect to see some publicity working with staff around the process in mid-August through early September. With that, I'll use the slides and tell you a little bit about who our team is and what the overall process is for both projects. Let's see if it works. So what I'm going to touch on is who's our team, what's the steps in the process, the methodology, how do we integrate the two, the water master plan and the official community plan, and what are the early steps, and then there'll be a chance for questions at the end. I mentioned the 3 team members. Lanark are a group of planners, facilitators, and landscape architects. We have offices in the mainland, but our main office is in downtown Nanaimo, and I've been at this since I came here in the early 80s, married to my wife, and bought a house on Lynn Drive in 1986. Coors and Associates are your standing engineering consultants, and so we're very pleased to be working with them on this team. Econics have a small role, but they're actually a very leading research firm in the economics of water use. And so they're a small role, but a very interesting one. And by the way, they will be impressed by your incline water rate structure because it's leading. So I'm David Reed. You'll meet two other folks from Leonard. Jana Zielinski is principal, and she is my co-lead on this and will be heavily involved in run the facilitation process. Kate Evans is another principal who will assist with the planning, and you'll see both of them at public events. John and Kristen are research and facilitation backup support. Coors, you will see, okay, first technical difficulty, there we go. Coors, you will see Rob Hoffman, who is your main contact in engineering, assisted by Mitchell Burke, who has done the modeling for Lansville's water system, and Chris Holmes, who is working on your development cost charge bylaw. So all of them very familiar with Lansville. And then from Econics, the three principals there are Kirk, Jean-Pierre, and Rebecca. Likely Rebecca will be mainly involved here. So talking about methodology, the Efficient Community Plan is a 20-year window. We're looking at a review of the existing OCP, which is a good framework, and how it might be refined to deal with the next 20 years. One of the questions in any efficient community plan is how much growth is appropriate and where and what type. We'll be looking at a wide range of policy options. We'll be working with the community on what the options are and what the community values are that would guide decisions. But of course, council in the end is the decision maker on where to go with the OCP. We'll be looking at the relationship between land use, where it is and when it is, and water supply. Obviously, one of the biggest issues in Lansville is water supply. And so it makes total sense to us to integrate the two processes. One informs the other. So on the Water Master Plan, again, it's also a 20-year window. We'll be building on the water supply and distribution study that Coors has done last year. We'll be looking at how much water might be needed, what's the role of various types of water conservation, and how do we align the two. One of the major reasons for bringing it together is because for the public, the two are related. There are different focuses in each of the OCP and the Water Master Plan, but certainly the public process, everybody's going to be talking about both, and so why don't we have one process? And that's the key point. It's an integrated engagement process. We'll be looking at the two at the same time. All the public events will be working with both the Water Master Plan and the OCP. We'll be working very hard to help the public understand where they overlap and where they don't, what the differences are. But certainly, having the two run along together gives us major cost efficiencies, very substantial cost efficiencies, because we're not duplicating processes or duplicating meetings. And even for council, it's much more efficient. We will be involving Vancouver Island University. The students will be here in September, I understand, just like they were last year, but that is just the introductory class. There's now a second-year class, and we'll be working with staff of the university to see how they could be involved. Probably largely in engagement activities, but we'd love to involve them in a more substantive way. And certainly the process will be highly participatory. We've done an awful lot of this type of work, so we have a lot of fun working with the community. We have a lot of respect, actually, for the intelligence of the community. So as I mentioned, we're going to use Mindtown Days to launch the public park. We'll be working a lot with the public, but as I said, council is the final decision maker. We'll also be doing technical assessments. We'll be doing multiple account evaluations, which are a bit technical. But in simple terms, we'll be trying to understand the values of the community, the values of council, what's important for people in Lansville, and then translate that into evaluation criteria that allow us to assess options towards a decision support system that's logical and transparent. If we're successful, at the end of the day, people will go, I may not agree with every recommendation, but I respect the process and I understand where those decisions came from. The method is in 8 stages, and I know council has it in front of them, so I'm not going to go through it all. We are starting with a communication strategy, which we'll work with staff on in the next month. We'll be understanding the background of Lanceville. Although I live here, I don't pretend to know everything about it, but by the end I will. We'll be looking at options, so we won't be just coming forward with recommendations. We'll have several different options that we'll assess. The timing of options, we'll be starting to think about options for both water supply and the OCP in mid-fall. We'll likely be doing some, we call them kitchen tables, so small group meetings before Christmas. We think it's important to do a statistically valid survey to make sure that the input that comes to meetings reflects the broader community. And that'll likely be early in the new year because we have to avoid the Christmas season. And so we won't be coming up with draft recommendations until February, March, because we need that process to inform them. We'll likely have the master plan study done early spring, like April, but then the OCP draft recommendations will follow immediately, so by May. There is then a statutory process to change an official community plan. There's referrals that take some time, so we planned it that referrals will be over the summer. So the water master plan will likely be done and ready to adopt by spring. The OCP probably won't go to public hearing until after Mine Town Days next year because of that referral process. So you'll know the recommendations by spring, but the actual adoption takes some months. And so for fun, because the public will kind of say, what's been happening all summer, we'll use Mine Town Days a year from now to say, there's going to be a public hearing, come on back. And so to remind you, early steps then, we're started up now. We'll be doing research over the next 2 months. You'll see advertisements in mid to late August. We'll be at Mine Town Days for a launch of the public process. We'll probably touch base with council. It's just right after that Saturday and the Monday. We won't have the results of Mine Town Days yet, but an informal report and further information on next steps. And at that point, we'll likely have the proposed dates for the events in the fall. And so we'll have that set up. We need to talk to Brenda about cost involved. And so with that, open to questions. Council, Mayor Hain.
Council. Councilor Hain.
Well, thank you very much. That was very informative. It's nice to see what the plan is and kind of what the timelines are. It helps us to get it straight in our head. Just around public engagement. My biggest concern is making sure the community is engaged as much as we can. And kitchen meetings was a big part of the last one, so I'm glad to hear that. Is there going to be a community-wide questionnaire go out for everyone?
Yes. So there'll be several events at Costin Hall. There'll be the kitchen table meetings, which are going out to the neighborhoods. There'll also be in the new year a survey that's Lanceville-wide, and that's trying to get to everybody, right? So it'll either be phone or be mail out. It needs to be scientifically valid, so not self-selected. So we do both. And we hope that the results are the same, but the statistically valid ones are checked, that we've got something that's reflective.
Good. The other issue we have in Lanceville is getting people out.
Especially a day like today, yeah.
Yeah, so, hopefully there'll be some sort of electronic use for engagement too.
Yes, we will have, we'll be using all of the social media tools. So, there'll be response forms at each event. They'll be available online for like a week after the event, so people that can't come still can respond. There'll be notices on the district's new Facebook page. We'll have set up to get Twitter out. We're careful because we've had cases, not ours, but there's been cases in Toronto where it gets abusive, right? So we'll be careful with that. But certainly we'll be using all those social media to get word out, and then allowing people to respond either in person or online. Okay.
Additional input, questions? Councilor Gilbert.
Yes, once again, thank you. Good to see a roadmap here. Now, I've heard a lot about communication with the community, and of course that's extremely important. I don't see anything in here about communicating with potential developers who may or may not be providing infrastructure as part of their potential developments. Is that part of the plan as well?
The general process is that we will, before each public event, we'll have a check-in with staff, we'll have a check-in with committee, if there is one, and then the public event. We will treat I mean, landowners are important. Some landowners are developers, but we will treat them the same as everyone else because it's not proper to have separate meetings. So they are absolutely important, but they are as important as everyone else in that school. So certainly, I think staff will be meetings between staff and development, happen regularly, and there'll be information coming, and we'll be certainly open and welcoming the development community. But we won't be having separate private meetings. It's not appropriate.
Why isn't it appropriate?
Because of public trust. It's a matter of trust. It's not that there's anything terribly wrong goes on in those meetings, but there's a danger that we would be seen as providing favoritism to a developer as opposed to some other landowner. It's simply a matter of what's fair. In other words, we need to treat everyone fairly, equally. I think it's not that we're certainly not anti-development. We're pretty neutral. But we have to be careful of the public trust.
Councillor Wilson.
I liked how you used the term statistically representative data set early on in the presentation, so I may have to give you a hug after this meeting for that.
Statistician.
Looking forward to seeing what you put together. Thank you.
Thanks.
Additional comments from council. One of my concerns is this tying together the water master plan and the OCP. Historically, there's been the concern that provision of water will drive development. Concern about that? No concern about that? Chicken and egg?
It's very much chicken and egg. The main reason for tying the two together is the public engagement process. Because we don't think you can have a meeting in Lanceville without discussing them both. So the public's going to be into them both. So it makes no sense. If you can imagine otherwise, there would be a meeting one week on the OCP and one the next week on the water master plan, and we just see that as a mess because the issues are so interrelated in the public's mind. But having said that, there is, I think, there's some interdependence between the two. There may be some ability to reduce some costs for some people related to development, but it's not like it's wholesale. It's not like there's a wholesale interlock. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's important to educate people about how they're different. The official community plan is a very broad, long-range policy document, whereas water is infrastructure. So, yes, it's a relationship, but we don't want either to take over, right? And they're two separate documents in the end. So having the process together lets us be more efficient and deal with them where they tie together, but we'll be trying to make sure that we don't let one overwhelm the other or have people misconstrue that a water plan is an official community plan. It's not. It's a small piece of it.
Well, and one of the reasons, when we had our town hall meeting regarding water there a month or two ago, there were people specifically from the WINS where when they proposed cost with no development, no et cetera. Yeah. And the statement on the part of some people was, okay, well, we'll get the developers to pay. With developers comes development. So right away there was that tie being made. So that's my concern. When we did the one in 05, two totally, I wouldn't say totally separate. Basically, they were asked to suspend belief, pretend we have water, effectively, which did or didn't work as the case may be. But that's my only concern is that the chicken and egg, which drives which, and will somebody end up putting more emphasis on one because of the other.
And I do think that in both cases, the underlying question is what are the broadly held values of Lanceville, and what does that mean for the future of Lanceville? And so growth is a part of that discussion, but there's the environment and the waterfront and Parks and Rec and so on and so on and so on. Social housing, the mix of housing, there's a lot of things that are issues here, and yet a huge amount of potential. And so having a clear picture of that desired future, is it any different than the existing OCP? The existing OCP is quite a good framework. So maybe there's no change, maybe there's minor change. But that's the check-in, are we still in the right future? There's been only tiny amounts of growth in Lanceville because of the water supply issue. And so if there is changes in the water supply issue, there will be more growth. And it's the right time to think about, well, if there is more growth, where, how fast, what form, all within the vagaries of the development market, which actually decides, right? So it's timely to check in with the community to see where the values are and what's changed. We've seen a little bit of decline in the village here, and so what's the relationship of that to development in terms of historical looking and so on. So it's been some time since the last OCP, so it's timely again. But I wouldn't want people to think that water drives the future of Lanceville. Right? Water supply is an issue, but the future of Lanceville should be driven by the community and council. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Okay. Councillor Swing?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. With respect to developing the water master plan, are you planning on having a separate survey for the residents that do not have water service?
We will have, when I say there are kitchen table meetings, I mean they're small group meetings, and it's likely that we'll try and define, if you like, water service areas like neighborhoods, but the sewage plant has sewage service areas, so we will define areas like that are as logical as we can make them, and go and meet with each of those in small groups, because each, like the Winds, are an area, of course, that is great concern, but there may be other neighborhoods as well. So yes, we will meet them individually. When we do a statistically valid survey, or in any event, we'll be asking people to define which of those potential water services areas they're in, so we can then check the data against what opinion flows from where. So tell me if I've answered your question. So we will be tracking where the opinion is coming from. Does that answer your question?
Kind of answers it. In this whole water master plan, what I was hoping for, in my opinion, was to actually have a bit more of a scientific survey conducted with the residents that don't have that water service presently, and to have that evidence supporting the need for it in those areas.
So certainly we will, in the new year, have a scientifically valid survey. And we'll design that to try and make sure that we can report out different opinions from different neighborhoods. So it'll be one survey for all of Lanceville, but it will be able to be broken down by neighborhood. And it'll ask, because it'll likely be phone or maybe mail, we'll be working with council on what are the key questions. So we may, when we go to a community event, have a wide range of questions, but for that survey, because we'll likely try and focus it down on what are a half dozen key questions, so that we get a big return. And we'll be publicizing it very strongly, but I imagine the process through the fall is people are going to be very aware, and we'll be saying all the way along, there will be the survey, and it's very important that you answer when the opportunity comes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just kind of following up on what Councillor Swing was talking about. When you say statistically significant or representative, you're talking about the population of Lanceville as a whole.
Yes.
When we start to break it down into neighborhoods, one of the concerns I would have is whether or not the conclusions being arrived at as a result of that sample, are they statistically representative for that area? And we'll just use it as an example of the RDN, the survey around recreation. On the Southern District 68 recreation as a whole, yes, it's statistically correct. But when you break it down to Lanceville, for example, we're a rounding error.
Yes.
So just their error portion could cause us to flip 100%.
And so in the design of the survey, I understand your point completely.
Okay.
In the design of the survey and in the process, we'll be having community-wide meetings early on, but then the reason for these kitchen table meetings or small neighborhood meetings is to recognize that in neighborhoods, and likely particularly those without water, there'll be great concern, and there's likely to be a lot of neighborhood discussion, and people that are lobbying each other in the neighborhood, if you like, talking to each other about what to do. That's great. The kitchen table discussion is a way to be a part of that and to make sure there's information both ways. That is, clarify if there's misinformation or answer questions. It's conceivable if we just relied on the neighborhood meetings that is only a part of the neighborhood. It's not the whole neighborhood. And so the reason for this statistically relevant outreach is to try and to be sure that informal input is reflective of the overall neighborhood. So some people may not be comfortable coming to a meeting in a neighborhood for whatever reason. We would hope that they would respond to this survey. Because it's just Lanceville and it's 3,500 people, we sure will be trying hard to be representative of these water service areas, right? We don't anticipate that we won't have a lot of participation. I mean, it's a big issue in Lanceville. We expect people will be keen to participate, particularly in January. It's a good time for that. We wouldn't want to do it in August when everyone's away. So I think we have the same objective, and we'll need to talk to him about exactly how we do it to make sure it's right.
We'll give you the whole calculation, don't worry about it.
Good. Okay.
Councilor Wilson?
Sorry, I've got one more for you. It might not be the right place for you to answer this, but I kind of break it down to three main variables that people have to think about: cost, amenity level, and development. Right? It's the
You're
cost.
thinking about overall.
Yeah, I think of the cost-time-quality triangle in project engineering. You can't have it all, right? You can pick two things, the third one suffers, essentially.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see how the information gathering decouples those so people can process the decisions to be made. So you might be interested in water for free. You might be interested in water for $10,000. You may not be interested in water if it's $40,000. And then you bring in the development side of that. It changes the cost, but they're competing variables. So I'm curious to see how that's tackled in the information gathering.
I won't take up all of council's time on it, but it's a very insightful question. So we will mix. I'll step back. We don't think it works to say there's three sides to the triangle: their environment, their social, and their economic. That's too general, right? You could talk all day about that and not get anywhere. We'll break those down into something that's more specific, as you started to allude to, like if you were, and we'll use scenarios. So we'll try and break down those general areas into something that is more specific statements of value. I want to walk on the beach. I want water, but my ceiling is $20,000 or $10,000, whatever it is. I want to stay in Lanceville. I've got no place to live. What kind of housing do I want? Try and be more specific. And so give people choices where in answering the specific questions, we're then able to generalize that back up to a big picture and a balance. So I guess we start by taking the big ball and going into some detail, and it may seem like too much detail at times, and then we'll later generalize that up to the remaining issues and generalize those to recommendations to council. Okay. So it is a bit of a process, yeah, and it's not as simple as you think.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Anything further from council? Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate the input.
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
Brenda Savage, President of the Seaside Community Society, quarterly update.
Good evening. We've been busy, and this is the Seaside Community Society report. So we'll start with cost involved. Oh, it's got to go on.
No, it's not pull it down.
Don't break it down.
Like that? Like that? Yeah? Like that. Am I reaching? Have you got a stool? Can you hear me now? Yeah? Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start with cost involved and go through a few headings, like programs that continued until the end of June, and July and August is usually quiet except for the odd wedding, and this is a good time for us to get jobs done. The Lanceville Parks and Rec bicycle safety program has been operating monthly on the covered patio at Costin, and the next one is in August. And the gardening workshops coordinated by Councillor Cogloff were well attended. There was also a choir recital given by one of the regular renters and was attended by over 150 people. There was also a number of private parties, seminars, meetings throughout this quarter, Then, of course, there were the fire department celebrations and the Spark sleepover to end the season for guides. In terms of maintenance and upgrades, this has been a busy quarter. A crisis with gushing faucets and leaking sinks brought the plumber in to replace 3 faucets and repair plumbing fittings that were old and worn. The problem with finding tubes to fit the old lights in the hall was resolved when the electrician fitted new ballasts to a number of faulty lights. A fire equipment inspection done annually revealed the need for additional wiring to the fire suppression system over the stoves. This was completed at the same time, and all with the District of Lanceville capital budget. The grease trap under the commercial sink was pumped out for the first time in a long time. This will become a planned regular maintenance item. We are learning lots about facility maintenance. Who would have thought the box under the sink was a grease trap? Anyway, that's been done. A janitorial contract was renewed with a new contractor and is working out well. The board took on the stage clean-up. The stage was very dusty, very neglected really in many ways. The curtains were shredded with age and wear, and as a temporary measure, we stuck them together with duct tape. The great standby. Board members are coordinating the purchase of material and the making of new black curtains for the back of the stage. I don't think the duct tape will last much longer. A board member also coordinated the renovation of the community notice board with materials donated by local contractors and work done by volunteers. We also purchased a sandwich board to advertise events at the hall. We have dealt with one complaint of noise, which always brings the opportunity to learn what does and doesn't work in our systems. We are in the process of reviewing contracts for wedding and late night rentals. We are reinforcing procedures, especially noise management procedures, with the development of a hard copy brochure we will give to one-time event renters. When a booking is made a year in advance, the verbal instructions we give are not always remembered in the heat of the occasion. Not everyone thinks to check the website for information. And thanks to Councillor Colcliffe's good look at the AVICC, we've received a grant from Fortis to help with the cost of building a wall to create a true foyer at the main entrance in the hopes that this will make noise easier to manage. It will also provide a new office at the front door, which can double as a box office, and will allow the old office to be used for much needed storage for equipment like table tennis tables and Tyson's bleachers. We are hoping for donations of materials to complete this project in the near future. We're now going to the Heritage Church building. Since our last report in March, Seaside has negotiated an interim rental contract until September 30th with the Woodgrove Christian Community Church. Seaside has assumed full management of the building, including rentals and utilities. Woodgrove's use of the premises is in keeping with their worship, Bible study and social needs. In effect, they have continued to use the building Sunday and Thursday. The interim contract was to allow them time to reorganise and clear the basement of their many belongings in preparation for potential renters from the community. Since the basement locks have been faulty for some time, replace the deadbolt locks with new ones and assign new keys to current renters. We are renting the church for wedding ceremonies on Saturdays, and I think we have one in August. With a maximum capacity of 60, this is a venue for small gatherings. At this time, we are processing an application for a childcare facility in the basement of the church, and we have facilitated a transition planning meeting with the applicant and the representatives of the Woodgrove Christian community. The childcare service is wishing to start early September. Remember that the Woodgrove's contract doesn't end until the end of September. And so they've both been most cooperative and accommodating and have come to an amicable arrangement. The congregation will continue to meet in the church for their services on Sundays and in the basement after service for their social time. Much like regular renters do at Cosfin Hall, the two renters will share the use of kitchen and washrooms with very limited time conflicts. If this application succeeds, the Heritage Church basement will have close to maximum occupancy in the year to come, and Lanceville will get a much needed childcare facility in the village hall. That's it.
Questions, comments from council? Councillor Swain.
Yeah, through the chair to the presenter.
Push your button.
I should stay here.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for the presentation, and also thank you for your service, everything you do in our community. With respect to the noise complaint, just out of curiosity, was it RCMP driven, bylaw driven?
The OCMP were called by a neighbour. They came. They did not register a complaint, and they, I understand, didn't get out of the car but came and had a look. I think they may have come back a second time to check on the activities at the hall, and that activity went on a little longer than we anticipated.
Further questions or comments from council? Very good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Next item for correspondence from Anne-Marie Smith regarding the closure. Now we do have a motion later in the agenda with respect to the closure itself. Second piece of correspondence with regards to Bill McKay, Mayor of Nanaimo, with regards to the water. We can deal with these separately or together, council's wish. Separately? Okay, so the first item would be correspondence from Royal Canadian Region 257 approval. Actually, we have under Parade Road closure. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hain made the motion. Councillor Colfer seconded it. Any discussion on the road closure? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Second one from the City of Nanaimo, responding to the district's request to amend the Lancashire Nanaimo Water Agreement. At the very least, we need a motion to proceed. Received by Councillor Colfer, seconded by Councillor Swain. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Hain?
Well, the letter says they're inviting us to meet with them, and previously we had said we wanted to meet with them. Oh, sorry. The letter on the second page includes an invitation to meet with them, and previously council members have said they wanted to meet with them, so why wouldn't we, as a minimum, at least agree to meet with them?
Now, keep in mind that the invitation, I don't know if our CAO has had any further discussions with the City of Nanaimo, is rather vague. It says we would like to meet with. Well, does that mean councils? Does it mean technically there's a water committee, the City of Nanaimo, that has representation from those various parties? The only place where it mentions actual elected representatives is Southwest Extension, which is Area C.
So as a follow-up, wouldn't we ask them to get clarification on who it is they're asking us to meet with?
Mr. McGregor?
Through your worship, yes. Mayor Hain's correct. The letter itself is fairly vague and alludes to some sort of meeting. In saying that, if council gives me authorization, I can always pen a letter from CAO to CAO at this point because it has come before council. I can move it forward to find the parameters from their CAO in regards to who is supposed to attend the meeting, and then I can provide that back to council if they wish.
I think that's a good idea. Otherwise, it's kind of rude. We sent a letter, they responded, and I do think we should get further clarification and respond so that we continue the dialogue.
Mr. McGregor?
Yes, sir. Just to remind council of what the district asked the City of Nanaimo was very specific in regards to 3 points for amendments. This is the letter that council has received back, which from a cursory review does not seem to overly allude to responding to those amendments. So there's a non-answer answer in my opinion.
Councillor Colfer?
I concur with Councillor Hain here. I think it's we have an invitation, albeit vague. I think it would be appropriate for our CAO to correspond with the City of Nanaimo, find out the details on where and when and who.
Let's do it.
Okay, anything further on the motion to receive? All those in favor of the motion to receive? Opposed? Motion carried. Councilor Hain.
Yes, I move that we instruct the CAO to send a letter to the CAO of the City of Nanaimo following up on clarification and the structure of the meeting.
Second by Councilor Colclough. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Further updates, Mayor and Council. Councilor Gilbert.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Councilor Coulson.
Nothing.
Councilor Colclough. Councilor Hain. Councilor Swain.
Yes, I have something to report. Through the chair, just an update on my activities with respect to the Nanaimo Park and Rec Commission. There are none. And they're planning on reconvening maybe in August or September. That's my update. Thank you.
Councilor Coulson.
Is that a commission or a committee?
Oh.
Sorry, is it too soon for that kind of joke?
Standing or? Okay. For myself, nothing specific to report on. Next item, financial services, second quarter capital project update report. It's a report from Jean Beauchamp, our Director of Financial Services, regarding quarter 2. And as a minimum, we motion to accept the Council 8.
I move that Council will receive the July 25th, 2016 quarter 2 capital project update report for information.
Second by Councilor Swain. Thank you. Discussion. Councilor Coulson.
Question. Phase 3 sewer. I see a completion date of December 2016. Is there an ETA for when we will hear back on the grant application status?
Through your worship, I have sent an email off to the ministry waiting to hear back on responses to potential ETA.
Yep.
Anything further? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Wellfield rehabilitation update provided for council. Our Director of Public Works, Fred Spears, has provided an update with regards to the rehabilitation surrounding the wells, replacement of well number 6, as well as the rehabilitation of well number 9, providing some information about potential yields subject to coordinated pump test. Councilor Colclough. Move receipt. Second by Councilor Gilbert. Discussion. Councilor Coulson.
Yeah, we'll vote to receive this. I'd also like to see it back on the agenda again if I could. I have some questions around the aquifer capacity. I was under the impression that the 24-24 referred in the Lowen Hydrology report and then subsequently in the Coors report, that was the aquifer capacity. As I read this report, it would appear that as the ability of our wells increases, our output's going to increase. And so I've tried to get clarity on the difference between well field capacity, or the actual physical capacity of the wells, versus what the aquifer is capable of producing. And after reading this recent report, I'm not clear if I have that information. I'd like to see this come back so we can get some clarity on those numbers.
Councilor Colclough.
I think what we've got here doesn't relate to aquifer capacity. It relates to what we can extract with our infrastructure in those particular slots. I would like to see this come back as well. One of the things I think is lacking here is a snapshot. So ideally, I'd like to see a table that lists the wells, the previous capacity that we were pumping at, the estimated capacity, and the actual capacity. So we have at least at that point a snapshot of how much we can extract from the ground. I think the aquifer capacity is another question, separate question, and a bigger one, and one that's definitely going to be a little more tricky to pin down. I think the first step I'd like to see is a summary of this. When I read through, the numbers are all there, but it doesn't really create a picture. What I see here is that we pumped at a certain rate. We did a pump test and estimated that there was likely the ability to increase to a higher level, and in fact, the 2 wells that have been completed are at quite a bit higher level than that. And I think it would be nice to see a table that showed that.
Okay. My apologies, Councillor Geselbrecht. You did raise your hand previously.
I just want to say this is bloody good news with an 85%. Good news, the good news. 85% increase in well 6A, which is the new well, compared to the old well 6. Potential cleaning out the other wells, expected much larger outputs. This goes a long way to increasing the amount of water that will be available to Landsville, and connect that with a Nanaimo water agreement. Good news for the community.
Councillor Olson.
Yeah, I agree. It is good news, with the proviso that the aquifer can actually handle that. A year ago, we had the knowledge that the aquifer was rated at 1,000 cubic meters a day. So, it's very important that we get clarity on that number. A simple way to look at it right now is if 2,400 is the aquifer capacity, and we're already able to pump out 2,863, that's about 17-18% over aquifer capacity. So do we need to carry on with rehabilitations of well 4 and 12? It's just questions that we have to address, and it's great that the pumps are capable of doing more. If the aquifer can handle it, that's fantastic.
Any further discussion? Just a note on well 4 and well 12, one of the considerations is occasional redevelopment of them anyway, regardless to maintain that capacity. Okay, nothing further? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, bylaw number 75.3. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, do we need a motion for that to come back again, or will staff just make that happen?
Staff. I don't know, staff's waving at me about something else.
No, that's exactly what I'm waving at, Your Worship. Your Worship, just an overall comment. One of the struggles staff has is we're getting requests in piecemeal. Staff's plan is to bring forward a comprehensive report once the well tests are done, once all these A, B, C, D are put into place. So to give council an accurate picture, we want to err on the side of caution. We don't want to allude to something that is or is not there. So when staff are bringing forward a fulsome report, a final report, we want to make sure that we're 100% correct. And this is a concern of providing this is every week, every month, we're having changes, either with a change in the well field ability to extract, et cetera, et cetera. So we are erring on the side of conservative caution to make sure that we're not over-projecting something that we don't have.
So are you recommending that this come back after the simultaneous tests of all the various wells?
That's correct.
Okay. Do note that those numbers that you were referring to are available in other reports. It's just a case of kind of putting them side by side. So, okay, anything further? Okay. Moving on to bylaws, bylaw number 75.3, which deals with 7468 Landsville Road. I'm going to excuse myself due to potential conflict of interest related to a business relationship.
I also am going to excuse for the same reasons.
Who's on first?
Back in the hot seat again. Do we have a motion for this item?
Move to council about the Saskatchewan Senators for election system. Phase 2 of the service amendment bylaw. Under 7/3/2016.
All right. Seconder, Councillor Swain. Discussion. Hearing none. Councillor Coulson.
Sorry, we did one like this like a month or so ago, right? It's just basically a new house connecting up to the service.
Staff.
Is that essentially what we're looking at here?
No.
No.
Yes, no, this is the first amendment since I've been here. It's in relation to them not being within the area of the local area service and not identified within the area of any local area service.
I think to answer Councilor Wilson's question, though, this was the motion that was before council a few weeks ago. This will conclude the...
Okay.
Yes, so this, you gave 3 readings to the bylaw at the last meeting. This is the adoption of the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion, all in favor? Motion carried.
Sure.
Welcome back, Carter.
It's still hotter in here. Okay, moving on to item 10B, bylaw number 129. This is related to the District of Lansdale Water Asset Replacement Reserve Fund transfer. The Director of Finance has put together a report detailing the existence of 2 reserve funds with the idea of combining them into 1 reserve fund. Moving first reading by Councillor Colclough, do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Swain. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Second reading, Councillor Colclough, Councillor Geselbrecht. Discussion? Just one question for staff, just in terms of legality. So on the one hand, the older fund, the suggestion is because we don't have the defined purpose of it, we couldn't spend money out of it. Yet at the same time, we're saying that the purpose is the same as the other one, so therefore we can combine the 2.
It is quite a tricky situation. I've never come across a case like this where you didn't have an establishment bylaw that you discovered, that you just had a reserve fund. It was discussed with the ministry, and that this was an acceptable approach, was that we're determining that the function of both reserve funds is the same, and therefore we're going to transfer the balance of the first reserve fund into the second reserve fund, and then from there on in, we're able to actually spend the funds.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Third reading. Moved by Councillor Geselbrecht, second by Councillor Swain. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, 11A, the new business Minetown Day 2016 budget and parade road closure, September the 10th, 2016. Now, if we could deal with these as 2 separate motions.
So moved, item 11A.
Okay, so actually, just the first part of 11A, which is road closure?
First paragraph of 11A.
Okay, second by Councillor Colclough. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. The second one with regards to the increase in the budget from 10 to 13. Moved by Councillor Colclough, second by Councillor Geselbrecht. Discussion. Councillor Paulson.
So I'm just looking for the justification behind the $3,000 increase. I didn't read this one in detail, so am I missing it?
Justification for it is more of a housekeeping matter. So in the past, we would receive donations. One is substantial, $2,000, and those monies would be expended on expenses. However, the budget that council receives shows the $10,000 flat amount, and then the donations weren't received at the time the financial plan was done, so they weren't shown. So the justification is it's funds that have been expended in the past and that they wish to expend again this year. Otherwise, the process would require the committee to stay within the $10,000 that's provided by the district. And that doesn't cover all of the expenses related to the year.
So how did we do it previously, if it's a housekeeping for this year?
We received the monies and expended it, but it didn't show in the financial plan.
Councillor Henry.
I'm a little concerned. It's a significant increase. Yes, the net is 10. In the past, though, we've always been significantly less than this, even after donations. The donations are not new. We've been receiving a Coors donation for at least the last 7-8 years, between 2,000 to 2,500. Traditionally, our budget, and I've got all the budgets going back, have been around netting about $8,000 when we, even before we had donations in it. So for some reason, the budget seems to be quite a bit more this year, which is why we're trying to find out what's increased the budget. I get that the traffic part of $400 was in there, and I accept that, but it just seems like there's quite a significant increase. Last year, the budget was only high because we did a one-time Euro bungee for $2,000. So traditionally, our rides amount would come in at around quite a bit less. So this is not, I hope, to be a trend where now, because I worry that if we budget $13,000 for Minetown Day and we don't get donations, are we going to have to increase our budget to 13 to make up for lost donations? It seems to be getting quite high.
Councillor Colpatt.
Through the staff, correct me if I'm wrong, is it not $10,000 plus donations? And that's what the Minetown Day Organizing Committee would spend. This is just acknowledging those donations over and above the $10,000 that the district supplies so that it's all recorded on the books.
The short answer is yes. The long answer is we have received on Friday the 2,000. The report talks about if there are no additional donations received, we won't expend. So we would be expending the 2,000. Regarding the level of budget in prior years, we've tried to do some research on the budgets, but a lot of it is not within our system. What is within our system, I know the Director of Financial Services can speak to it, and the reports that we have received was that it was over $10,000 each year. But I'll let the Director of Financial Services speak to that. I'm not sure how much I can add to it. What happens with the budget each year is that the total budget expenditure is $10,000. In the past, some of the years, the total expenditure has slightly exceeded that, though there has been, on average, 2,000 to 3,000 of donations received every single year. And so the net cost to the district would be less than $10,000. The $10,000 was all that was ever allowed for the expenditure for that, for the Minetown Days. So what we're looking at now is you have two options. One is if we continue to receive the donations, do we keep the expenditure at $10,000, or do we go, okay, the cost of the district will put in $10,000, so their cost is $10,000 plus $3,000 donation, and then the total budget will become $13,000. So that's the decision for council.
Councillor Haynes.
Just for a follow-up, according to my records, traditionally when we did our budgeting for Minetown Day, we always built in the 2,000 and getting up to our 10. So we knew we always had a significant cushion between how much we had to spend and what we actually spent. Now what's happening is we're spending up to the 10 and we're counting on another 3 above that. That's where the difference is coming in. So it just gets me a little concerned. We've always been around 8,500-ish net 9. We'll pull up those documents in my budget. Hopefully we can keep this under control and it's not going to keep escalating from year to year. That's all I want to make sure of.
Further discussion? Just clarification. Myself and the Director of Financial Services, we had a chat earlier today because I was a little bit confused whether this was a net number. And on our budget, we showed the actual. When we looked at January's Committee of the Whole meeting, it showed the actual numbers, and I was concerned whether those were net numbers or whether those were gross numbers. And I'm going by memory here. In 2015, the actual expenditure was $10,900 minus donations. And so yes, it showed us over, but with the donations, it was under the $10,000 that was provided by the district. In the previous years to that, the 2 previous years, I believe, it showed roughly about $8,800 as the actual amount in the expenditure category. the donations were in a separate area, so the net cost, assuming donations were $2,000, the net cost was $6,800 roughly in those years. So I get the whole housekeeping thing about the 3,000 and that sort of thing, but the only justification in the report for additional monies was the traffic control. So I'm just kind of concerned about the fact that we don't have additional data with regards to why an approximate, if let's assume $3,000 worth of donations came in, about a 30% increase.
And I apologize for that misunderstanding, because certainly the staff, I was led to believe that they had a more budget for many years. However, on what the expenses are for this year, certainly the number of activities have been reduced over prior years. However, there is the added cost of the stage, because now the stage belongs to the Downtown Business Improvement Area and Association and in Nanaimo, and so we are actually paying for rent on that.
Okay.
And as well, there's the cost of the, you mentioned the traffic control, but also the cost of, they're anticipating there's going to be some cost for entertainment, and we don't have those numbers yet. But we certainly, as a committee, they're doing everything bare bones, and there's no intent to spend any more money than they need to.
Okay. Councillor Swain?
Through the chair, yeah, I'm a little concerned about perceived use of donations within the Minetown Days. I don't think these people are giving donations or co-hosting or sponsoring our event. I think that's something that district is actually doing. So I think we need to think along those lines. I think what the intent of those donations are is to improve the quality of what we're delivering. So again, I'm a little concerned on the perceived use of these funds from our people who are donating these funds.
Councillor Copeland? Glad I got my own microphone. That's great. Have fun, guys.
Well, as somebody who's new to council, when we passed the budget allocating $10,000 towards Minetown Day, I assumed that meant that $10,000 was available to the Minetown Day committee from the district, and then donations were on top of that. So if there's $3,000 in donations, my understanding of it was then there's a $13,000 budget to undertake Minetown Day.
Councillor Haywood?
Yes, but we've always tried to keep it so that the total came in at significantly less. And as Councillor Swain said, we've always used the Coors donation as something special. To sort of say this is their contribution. It's the District of Lansville event, but they sponsor the Euro Bungee, or we've had them sponsor other just specific rides, and we would put their banner just on the ride that they sponsored. So that's why we try to make that distinction, so it didn't become their event.
Scouts?
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other added cost. Was T-shirts or pennies, and I think the conclusion has been pennies. The T-shirts that have been in storage and then used each year, and even if there's 2 or 3 volunteers, one takes it off and hands it to the next one. And on hot, sweaty days, it was viewed that wasn't the greatest process, but the end result was that we had them stored downstairs in cardboard boxes, and so they have suffered some damage. We did take them off, get them cleaned, but there's still some damage. So we were waiting to see what the budget looks like and before our decisions made, but the discussion was to go with pennies so that they could be handed to members of the next, just show Lansville volunteer on the back so they could be used for other events.
And just a bit of history on the 10,000 aspect. When it was first created many years ago, it was budgeted as that amount with the idea that the community was providing enough money to hold the event in the nature in which they wanted. Because donations are unpredictable, if you increase the offerings of an event in one year, there's an expectation on the part of people that you will hold the same or better event the following year. And so that's one of the reasons why it was guided by the 10,000, and then any additional amount that came in just created a carryover for the following year. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So as we're voting on it, it's to have Lanceville contribute $10,000, and then any donations up to $13,000 could be spent by the committee. If they don't get $3,000 donations, they can spend up to whatever.
Only if the donation is received.
Right.
Yeah.
So 10 grand comes from Lanceville, the rest is...
Yeah, they've got $2,000 already, so they could spend as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Disposal of Engine 1, the 1956 Chevy to the Lanceville Volunteer Firefighters Association. Councillor Geselbrecht.
I so move.
Second by Councillor Haim. And just for the information of people, it's the transfer of it for the sum of $1. Do we have to charge GST on that? Just checking. Sorry. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. New items on the agenda. On our green page here is a draft letter with respect to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 257 in support of their grant application to the New Horizons Seniors Program. Moved by Councillor Colclough, seconded by Councillor Geselbrecht. Any discussion on the item? Historically, we have provided similar correspondence to support their grant in this regard. We received a request late last week, which is the reason for the late item on the agenda. Any further? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 11D, Councillor Coulson.
So I got a little bit of preamble before I read my motion here. So as I've learned more about conflict as relates to any council members and the details of how the Nanaimo Water Agreement came to be, I've become increasingly concerned about the risks being potentially taken on by Lanceville residents through this process. New Act for Information and the Well Redevelopment process, including the information in the agenda tonight, appears to indicate that existing Lanceville resources could be used to provide the 211 connections to existing residents as contemplated in the Nanaimo Water Agreement. Therefore, in my opinion, the Nanaimo Water Agreement in its current form benefits only developers, with the bulk of the benefit to go to a limited number of developers. The previous council had legal counsel of the day provide an opinion to the district, this was in 2013, regarding the potential conflict of individual council members. Since that opinion was provided, interpretations of the agreement may have changed. The individual situations of council members have changed. I've learned some of the conclusions reached in the original opinion may have been based on hearsay, and I've been provided documents that give me concern regarding possible pecuniary interests related to the supply of water from Nanaimo. On the water issue, we are faced with the possibility of a split vote of council, and the participation of one individual incorrectly could bring the whole decision into question more so than normal. The decisions council makes should be and need to be beyond reproach. In order to protect the rights of individual councillors, but more importantly the residents of Lanceville, I will make the following motion. Copies there. So I move that staff be directed to engage the district's...
Hang on.
Sorry. Oh. I cut these with my kids' scissors, that's why they're all So I move that staff be directed to engage the district's legal counsel to provide an opinion regarding the status of current council members and potential conflicts as it relates to the Lanceville-Nanaimo Water Agreement and its implementation based on information to be provided by individual council members.
Seconded by Councillor Haim. Discussion.
Pardon me? Yeah, I'll do that now.
Yeah, well, now that the motion's on the table.
Yeah.
True.
And I just wanted to mention, sorry.
This is newfangled technology for us. We can't handle it.
Just want to mention the option for council also, that generally when, under section 100, when someone is declaring a conflict, they're making their own personal declaration. And when someone wants to seek legal advice or call into question or whether there should be some action taken or whether someone is in conflict, that will be handled at a closed meeting. But that's certainly up to council.
Councillor Olson? Any further to add?
Not right now, no.
Councillor Haney.
Thank you. I hear what staff are saying. The previous council did get a legal opinion from the district's lawyer at the time. They released that legal opinion. That legal opinion was actually not obtained by the council members. The CAO of the day took it upon herself to get that legal opinion and brought it forward, and it was made available to the public. So I don't see any difference here in bringing this forward. Right now, this is an open agenda item, and so there is no reason for this issue to be in camera. It needs to be a public discussion, and I have a number of points I'd like to go through, but I can wait to see if there's any other comments made by other members of council.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, so I'll hop in now. So, per our legal orientation, there was a variety of mechanisms to address this. The first one was an individual declare the conflict. The second was staff declare the conflict. After that, our discussions got a little gray on how things proceed. So as I read, to me, there are some real risks here that we have to have help with before we carry on any further.
Mr. McCray, do you wish to comment on part of that?
Yes, through your worship, staff do not comment on conflict with council. Staff should never comment on conflict with council. As per the charter, section 100, as the director of corporate administration has indicated, either a councillor declares himself as conflict, or a councillor believes another councillor or set of councillors is in conflict, and that matter is handled in Supreme Court. There's two options.
I did bring the slides with me, but from Jeff Locke's legal orientation, point 2, you'll find it right there. Staff can raise the issue.
Okay, we don't want to get into it.
Anyways.
I just do need to respond. Staff could raise the issue. In saying that, staff will not raise the issue when it comes to conflict. I've been directed to by council.
Councillor Haynes.
And again, history, as the precedent has been set, where the previous CAO did get a conflict of interest opinion on her own and brought it forward with regards to all members of council. So yes, it is done. It's done in other communities. And in fact, at one or two City of Nanaimo meetings ago, members of council were bringing up a conflict of interest issue against the mayor. So it is common practice that it does come before council members, and council members can choose if they would like to get a legal opinion. So speaking to that, I think it's something we have to consider in order to protect the corporation. We've heard throughout our whole, or I have it particularly through my whole mandate as an elected official, that we must protect the corporation. And I've had, and I do not exaggerate, dozens of residents come to me asking about a potential conflict about one member of council and ask me what recourse there is. And I would rather not go there. I would rather we as a council deal with this in an open and transparent manner. If we have nothing to worry about, then let's show the residents that we are not afraid of getting a conflict of interest opinion. The legal opinion released by the previous council or lawyer for the District of Lansville, in his legal opinion of June 26, 2013, it stated in there that when a member of council is voting on an issue where there's a pecuniary benefit, then in the case of the water agreement, then there must be a legal opinion taken in order to eliminate the questions and concerns that that will create. That is in the legal opinion that is on the district's website. That's his advice to council. So why would we not follow his advice? So I get a little confused as to why we would, we had to make this decision. I'm not jumping that anyone says we never haven't, but it is an issue out there. One issue I've heard from residents or council members when it comes to legal is the cost. Well, this issue is of an urgent nature at this moment. We have an August 3rd special council meeting coming forward where we're bringing forward a motion to put an $800,000 pipe in the ground right now and not connect, but we're going to have a huge and significant expenditure. That may or may not be a legal action by this council. We need to make sure that we are acting in a legal manner. The interest cost that pipe we'd earn on that $800,000, if we held off, would easily pay for the cost of a conflict of interest opinion. It's about $3,000. It's small potatoes for the certainty it provides us. and not just us. The certainty and it resolves the issues for the residents. The residents want to know is if there's a member of council in the conflict. They have a right. The worst case scenario that I can see happening right now is we ignore this, we vote this down, and then they take action. And we all know the consequences to a member of council if they are found to be in a conflict of interest where it's a pecuniary benefit and they're voting on something. And right now, there are people who feel that that is the case. So my question more directly to council is, why wouldn't we get a conflict of interest legal opinion? Why wouldn't we? What do we have to hide? If we're all sure we're in a non-conflict position, why wouldn't we want to get a conflict of interest opinion? The previous council did.
Further discussion. Okay. Your thing says I request a recorded vote. Is that verbalized?
I request a recorded vote, please.
I have one more question. It's also been asked to me, is it normal for a member who may be in conflict to be voting on whether or not we should be getting a conflict of interest opinion? Does that not seem like
the challenge? Basically, what first off runs into a chicken and egg consideration, guilty until proven innocent sort of an aspect, and I wouldn't want to remove somebody's rights to participate on something that is unsure. Because when it comes to the aspect of council members have a duty to fulfill their role to the community by participating actively on council. And so if an individual pulls themselves away for something that, let's say, is not a conflict, that as well is a removal of their rights and a removal of the representation to the community that elected them. Mr. McRae, am I off base at all on that?
No, Your Worship, you're correct. Section 100 talks about the individual who believes they're in conflict to manage themselves in saying that as there has been no finding, if we're going to use legal terminology, there's been no finding of guilt at this point. There's no finding at this point, so every member of council at the table is declared to be at the table until either they are found in conflict or declare themselves in conflict.
Councillor Geselbrecht.
I have this scene in my mind of Senator Joe McCarthy sitting at the Senate investigations and having lists of names that he will show, sort of like Donald Trump's income tax returns. I haven't heard any name as to who may be in a potential conflict. We all hear rumors in the community. I've heard rumors about improper campaign contributions, for example. And, maybe that should be followed up. But I'm not going to vote in favor of this motion. I think it's a witch hunt. Until some names are named, I depend on the integrity of every one of these members, that if they feel they're in a conflict, that they'll man up on it. And so I will not be voting in favor of this motion.
Through the chair, I'm in a similar mindset of Councilor Geselbrecht in terms of, if somebody does want to declare a conflict, then they should be able to do it on their own accord. Therefore, I move to postpone this motion until such time, I guess until September, September meeting is, but until September, until such time, I feel more prepared to address this matter because it has been kind of sprung upon us, as well as give maybe all of council an opportunity to deliberate and consider what they may find themselves in conflict with if in fact they are in conflict.
I would second that.
Seconded by Councillor Geselbrecht. Just correct me, non-debatable, correct?
Just the time and place. So I had to a September council meeting.
Sure.
It's the 12th or 19th.
Okay.
One of the date.
So do you want a specific date? Councillor Sweeney? Attach a specific date?
Sorry.
September 12th or the 19th.
Both.
Is that acceptable, Councillor Geselbrecht?
Which one did we choose?
September 12th, I believe.
Yes?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so on the motion to postpone until the September 12th meeting, all those in favor Opposed? Motion defeated. Which gives us back to the original motion itself. Anything additional, Councillor Swain?
No.
Councillor Golson.
So pertaining to the question that I think it was Councillor Hain brought up about members participating in the vote, yeah, that one's messy. Struggling to figure out what I can and can't say about that, but there's legal precedent. I'll take a stab at it. There's legal precedent, one way or the other, not guiding. We have some legal precedent on that topic. I better stop there.
Just with respect to that, do note that in the community charter there is one specific area where an individual involved can't vote, and that's in the case of a challenge of the decision of the chair. The community charter is very explicit there. The chair, whoever it happened to be at the time, would not be allowed to participate in the vote, whether he wants to sustain the chair. So I would suggest that because the province and the people that wrote that act explicitly took the time to put in a case where an individual could not participate, the lack of such a statement, in my mind, would give the individual permission to participate. I'm not a lawyer, but that's my shot at it. Follow up?
Yeah. Sorry, and so I struggled with this at both legal orientations. We had the conflict of interest policy or something that we were working on, and we had spoke with both lawyers about procedural fairness. And it is, I regret not taking Law 200 in school because it gets really messy because, we talked about the chicken and the egg thing. I can name a name right now, I'd rather not, but how do you ensure procedural fairness but at the same time get issues that need to be addressed?
Again, not a lawyer, but when it comes to the aspect of procedural fairness, I would suggest that the law swings in favor of an individual as opposed to a body. Okay, anything additional? Councillor Hain.
Sorry. I just also want to highlight why, I thank Councillor Coulson for bringing this forward and why I see this issue as being particularly important right now. As we've noticed over the last while, there's a number of votes that happen at this council table where it's always a 4-3 split. So a 4-3 split, if you've got one person that's theoretically voting in a pecuniary benefit way, that could have significant consequences on the results. If it were a 5-2 split, it wouldn't be so meaningful. But with this council, you can incur significant costs of putting in pipes and signing and moving forward on agreements. And when they are challenged in court, then these decisions can be overruled. And so we are putting the residents at risk. And I just think that, we're all here to serve in a good, clear way. So why would we not want to get a legal opinion to make sure we're all not in a conflict of interest? It just would not make any sense to me as to why we would not want to.
Any further? Okay. Hearing none, recorded vote has been requested. All those in favor of the motion? Councillor Hain, Councillor Colclough, Councillor Coulson, and Mayor Hain opposed. Councillor Geselbrecht and Councillor Swain, motion carried. Actually, before you do that, staff, does that give you adequate direction?
We would make the motion or
Okay. Councillor Hain?
Question through you to staff. When will this be done, given the urgency for next week's meeting? And 2, I would like to be able to submit information directly to the lawyer, please.
Your Worship, as we're getting, number one, I can't predict when council is going to come back with a legal opinion, given their schedule. That's really their determination. In regards to submitting information, should council wish to want to submit it to them individually, it needs to come through me. It can be secured, and then I can provide it off to council. That's in an envelope is fine, but it does need to come through me before it goes out. You've asked for operational exercise, and that's my job.
Back to you, Mr. McCray. Is there anything additional you need?
Just confirm, Your Worship.
In order for the lawyer to provide us with an opinion, we're going to need a statement from each member of council regarding what they feel their role or status is in this development, in the agreement, because they would have nothing to base their opinion on if we don't provide them some facts.
So basically, as a result of the motion, our direction to council is to provide any information that they believe is relevant to legal counsel.
What we may want
Or
to
to
do,
staff,
we may want to make, have staff would have a discussion with the lawyer of specific questions to ask of you. And you can email that out, and then you can submit it, and we can see or forward that on.
Thank you, Ms. Coates. Okay, anything additional? Councillor Coulson?
Would staff use the 2013 conflict of interest opinion as a kind of starting template?
Recognizing our legal counsel has changed, I would leave that up to legal counsel as to what approach, our discussion between staff and legal counsel as to what approach to take.
Just my thought there is there's some facts in here that need adjusting. So if we rigorously adhere to it, I would like to see council have some input in what goes out the door to the lawyer.
Do recognize what's been requested is related to a conflict of interest of council, and I would leave it to staff and legal counsel to determine the form and information.
Okay.
Mr. McRae?
Yes, Your Worship. Given the nature of this legal opinion, council will not be able to vet information that goes forward. It comes down to there's personal information that goes along with this. There's some other information that could be a perception of swaying the intent of the decision. So all information, whether it be correct, incorrect, bad or good, must go to legal counsel, and it's their expert opinion to delineate based on that information what is considered conflict and what's not.
So what's your question?
Partially. Because often the answer being given is dependent on the question being posed. And there's some fundamental flaws in the question that was posed for the opinion that we received in 2013. So
I would leave it to staff and legal counsel to provide that guidance.
It's very worship. We just need one other matter, which is I will need the council to provide me with their availability through the month of August, as there may be points where legal counsel may wish to interview each council member. The issue is that there's paper documentation, but there's nothing beyond that, so to fill the gaps. This is quite a laborious exercise that we have to go through, and if council wants it exercised, I'll need those days.
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, I got no input to the previous conflict of interest. I just got notified it was done. So I'm not really sure what process there is. Traditionally, information was provided, I guess, through council members to the lawyer.
Do note that staff has provided us with guidance with respect to the approach. This time, what happened the last time is not relevant today. I'm afraid to ask it. Anything further?
yeah.
Thank you. Next item 12, public participation. Mr. Howell.
I took business law at McMaster University, which doesn't seem to be helping me right now. And we already know that the member of council, Councillor Gasselbrecht, is a lawyer. Hypothetically, if there were one or more members of council at any point in time in conflict and didn't exercise the fact that they were in conflict, that's their responsibility, and the law will take care of that. However, I do have a problem with what I heard tonight as a member of the community, and that is Councillor Hain mentioned that you as a council, I believe, possibly are going to sign off, I heard $800,000 of our money. Now, since then, you've debated and you've come up with an understanding that you want to defer, as Councillor Swain has put it, this problem until September. But I don't want you personally signing off $800,000 if in fact in September you find there was a conflict and you've already, then we've got a real can of worms. So you seem to have the cart before the horse. My conflict is, at this point, is in August, signing off of $800,000 and going to task with this problem in September. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that. Regarding development permits with variances, I caution council always, because my experience here is that when people come, they have their self-interest at heart, they come looking for a variance, whether it's height or width or whatever, and a lot of them that we are in conflict with are the ones who build on the foreshore. And they do have an allowance whereby if they rebuild, they seem to be able to build higher, which aggravates the neighbours behind them, who also would like to be able to see the same view that the people on the beach see. Right? That's why they live here. Same reason we don't like to put trees in which are going to be higher than the rooftops and so on. All I ask is that you as a council maintain caution and don't go giving these variances to these self-interest people who are all they're looking after themselves. And I would like to give consideration to the other people behind them and other members of our community. Consideration. Wonderful word. Okay.
Thank you. Additional public participation. Any Lanceville public participation? Mr. Dempsey.
Ron Dempsey, 6930 Owen Road. Yeah, this conflict, you know, I guess I've got a lot of history here. I would accuse of conflict way back in the improvement district. And it always seems that it comes down to residents are always quick to suggest conflict based on what size property that person owns. Water is for the whole community, and it includes fire protection. So all this awful lot of crap about people being in conflict. You've got a Fisher Communities plan, you've got a water service area. It's the job of council to provide those services. So, was there a conflict when you drilled well 6A? That was going to give somebody more water. So I didn't hear anybody ever accuse anybody of conflict on a well drill. So it's not the water agreement that was passed 2 years ago. So current council, other than one person, wasn't sitting on the council at the time. So there's no conflict over the water agreement. So I think it's time to move on and start looking at it. Unless you're going to do an OCP that's going to be without water. That's the other option as far as I can see. A couple other things, I guess. The whole idea of protecting the community in that, and then on the second part of it is you allow somebody to record in-camera meetings. I think that you don't need a policy to stop that. You just need some leadership. It's not correct. In-camera sessions aren't about what people say in that meeting, how councillors vote. It's to protect the subject. That's what the in-camera is. It's not an in-camera meeting, then it shouldn't be in-camera. So I guess when it comes down to suggesting that this in-camera doesn't allow for, you've got your transparency issue. People talk about, there's too many meetings that, if transparency and in-camera meetings are related, this council may be the least transparent there ever has been in this district, because you've certainly had more in-camera meetings. And I totally understand why they're on in-camera meetings. And Councillor Kane gets pretty excited and wants to vote lots of times or ask questions here. I've got the floor, so let me finish, okay? Just relax. You're overreacting, that's all. Anyway, while I was away on holiday, and what do I see? The store shut down, the gas station's closed, the chiropractor's gone. What's next? I hope that you move forward on this water, because we've got a situation in that in a year or two that the school's going to be examined as far as being seismically safe. If the school is limited to the number of students, I kind of question what the school board is going to do with the school. I think we need to have a little bit of growth here to maintain the school as it is. And I think that would be a lot more important than anything. During my holiday, I drove through Grand Forks. That seemed to be a topic that came up once before. A beautiful little community, 4,500 residents. They have a financial director, a total department of 5 staff, not 1, but 5. They have a planning department. There's 3 staff. There's 4,500 people. I don't know what happened in Grand Forks. It's pretty small and contained, but they seem to have a staff. And there's 18 outside. So 4,500 people. So I keep hearing about the small community can't afford it. Well, I don't think we can not have them and do the job correctly. In the newspaper while I was away, read online that it was in the bulletin actually, it suggested that councillors that attended the UBCM never reported on what occurred there. Well, maybe you should have asked somebody that was there and did report. I think if you ask people that may not have been there or never have been there to give their opinion, you're not getting the right opinion. So, the Nanaimo City Council, in my opinion, is never going to revise their water agreement. 3 out of 4 the councils that were on the former council voted opposed to the original agreement. So I don't think they're going to make any changes there. And I guess it's a good thing they didn't ask about how individuals support or don't support the Port Theatre. Other communities have supported the theatre and they don't get any chance of getting water. So it's time to move on. We need some teamwork on council. We have an OCP and there is zoning. You can do another OC, but I bet you it won't be much different. We just need something positive to happen and have real change. And there's only 2 years left on their mandate, so that's all I have to say.
Councillor Haney?
Nothing needs to be responded to.
Okay. Any additional public participation? Mr. Prescott.
I heard there was a meeting in August.
Yeah, there's a special meeting that's being proposed for August the 3rd at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
It doesn't show as of yet on the district site.
It's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar at the district site, yes.
The agenda isn't posted, it'll be posted later on the agenda.
Alrighty.
Could I ask what it is about?
There'll be an agenda shortly.
I can read it if you'd like.
No, you don't have possibly the complete agenda.
We haven't set the agenda yet, so we can't really see anything until the agenda is set and all councils see it first.
Usually goes up Thursday or Friday.
Okay, anything additional? Councillor Coppola? Yeah, actually, myself and Mr. McRae, we talked briefly about that today, and he was looking at least 2 more. Mr. McRae?
Yes, sir, Worship. This was kind of a dry run in regards to, as you can see, our video is not operational yet. It's pretty cool, but that's about it. Yes, we wanted council to be able to get the feel of what it was like to operate under the current system, and we're hoping for council to give us some feedback in regards to what they'd like to see differently, what can be arranged differently, etc. So we'll wait back for council's comments.
I'd like a mute button. That ain't coming. Okay. So, just a motion to adjourn. Councillor Coppola, Councillor Haney, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.